Welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies might have inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about Ari Aster's new film, Eddington. I feel like this one should have like a trigger warning or something on it. I don't know. We get into a lot of stuff here. Obviously, a very political film, a lot of politics to talk about, but a lot of puzzle pieces as well. Joining me, we've got Ryan Lewis Rodriguez returning to the show. We got a lot of stuff to get into. We have a great conversation coming up. So that is coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you are listening right now. Hit that subscribe, hit that follow, hit whatever button it is that'll make sure that you find out about all of our new episodes as they come, because we got a lot already recorded that are on the way and a lot more that are planned. So make sure you are following the show. And with that said, let's talk about Eddington. All right, Ryan Lewis Rodriguez is back with us. We are going to talk Eddington. And Ryan, where are we going to start with this one?
Well, if you're leaving it completely up to me, host of the podcast, geez, let me think. Which is going to make me sound smarter the first one off.
Yeah, right.
I think for my first piece, I'm going to go First Reformed from 2017.
Okay, all right. Let's just jump right in. Yeah, well, First Reformed, I think, is a great place to start. Let's go with it.
Because Eddington is ultimately a movie about somebody who's being radicalized to resort to murder. And by that being Joaquin Phoenix's sheriff character who kills Pedro Pascal's mayor and his son. And First Reformed, Ethan Hawke plays a priest who has become convinced that the death of the planet is imminent because we've been polluting it too much. So he basically straps on a bomb vest and he prepares to basically detonate it in his entire parish to make a point, and is ultimately driven away from that point, thankfully, but then ends up binding himself with barbed wire. And I think that's even more unsettling than the idea of him blowing up a bunch of people, which is weird. Bunch of people, your own self with barbed wire, they're about the same.
Yeah, dark stuff. No matter how you slice it, and whichever outcome happens for any of these people in either movie. I hadn't thought of First Reformed, and the reason I asked you to just jump right in here is because I feel like this movie, Eddington, there's just so many directions we could go with this thing, and I feel like I'm going to be all over the place with my puzzle pieces, and I feel like depending on the reading of this, depending on a scale of 1 to 10, how depressed this movie makes one as you're watching it and as you're continuing to mull it over in your head in the weeks following, it could go in so many different directions. So that's why I'm kind of like walking into this thing like, oh boy, here we go. Let's just jump right in, But I think First Reformed is a great one, and I can't believe I didn't think of that because it really does fit really, really well as far as a character who is just at wit's end. And it's not a matter of whether or not they are right about what they are upset about and about what the issues are that they're seeing and the solutions that they are seeing. It's just a matter of like something is going to pop off for these people because it's a horrible situation that just keeps getting worse, and that's just what we see day in, day out, constantly all over the world. And both movies are reflecting that really, really well. I'll go to a puzzle piece. One of the first things I thought of while this movie was playing out is actually a documentary that's one of my favorite documentaries of the last 5 years. It came out in 2020. It's Feels Good Man, the documentary about Pepe the Frog and how he was co-opted by the alt-right and internet message boards. And there's certainly some political overlapping between the two films, but the main feeling that both films kind of gave me is this feeling of hopelessness for just how bad we have become as a culture, as a race, as a people, as human beings. Like, it's just, how did it get here? And watching Feels Good Man and watching how these internet forums have just devolved into like their own little weird communities that just seem to hate everything, but they have their own little like subcultures, and we see a lot of that play out all within this one little town, which is kind of a microcosm of the entire country, basically, in Eddington, Texas, here in this film. And I think both films are, neither film has any kind of answer for what to do about any of this stuff. It's just watching, as I put it to a friend, it's like watching, these stupid little ants just go about their their whatever they're gonna do, and they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't have any idea how to fix anything or how to make things better for themselves or for anybody else, and they just go along and
They wait for the
nothing.
magnifying glass to come and get them.
Exactly. That's like best case scenario, like really for any of them. So, have you seen Feels Good, Man?
I have not.
Oh, it's great.
Ironically, though, I'm gonna put in a pick that I did not write down because of that recommendation. It's
Okay.
another documentary from 2020 called Totally Under Control,
Oh, I
which is
remember
on
that.
Hulu right now. I believe that's where Feels Good Man is as well, because I've seen it as I was scrolling through.
Mhm.
This was a documentary made about COVID during COVID.
Mhm.
The movie came out before Donald Trump even lost the presidency the second time.
Mhm.
And it is just absolutely devastating and just dripping with data, and it's a bunch of thinkers and a bunch of scientists and a bunch of people who know the world just going like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
seriously, we're screwed. We're screwed. We need something better. And I don't know if we necessarily got something better. I think we got something different, but if you look at it, we still have the year 2025 and Eddington still came out. So clearly we've not been going well.
Yeah, this is still, a lot of obviously this movie is, a straight up period piece. I mean, we recognize all this stuff because we all lived through it, and it's very, very 2020. But there's a lot of things outside of the central COVID stuff that is still happening right now, and we're still seeing it in the news all the time, just with different names, different people. But a lot of these things are still going on in this country, and COVID's still going on. We're never gonna finish that, but but I guess it's all fine now.
Way to
But
think positively, David. That's
I
that's the way
there,
to think.
there's no positivity anymore, and it's not happening, not on this side anyway.
Unless you can monetize it, there's no such thing as positivity.
There we go. That's a good way to look at it. I will go with an obvious one for my next piece, but I'm going to go with No Country for Old Men. This movie was marketed as this kind of like new kind of Western, which I think they kind of did the same with No Country for Old Men. I think as amazing as that movie is, and obviously a major Oscar winner and everything, it still was a very difficult movie to sell, what with the narrative and the way that the story kind of unfolds. And I'll never forget being in that theater and when Llewellyn dies basically off screen, and people are like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it's kind of a hard movie to kind of sell. But I think that kind of structure, aside from it being a western of sorts, I think that structure is also kind of at play in Eddington. I think the feeling that what you're watching isn't it's not about the plot of it. It's just that this is an example of a country gone to shit. Eddington itself as a town is an example of the country and all of its problems, just all kind of squeezed into this one place. And the big takeaway from No Country for Old Men being that this whole Anton Chigurh situation and the case with the money, it's just one just crappy story this cop, Tommy Lee Jones, has kind of lived through. And I think that kind of way of telling a story where it's not about the main plot you're seeing, it's about what that plot means to the overall and giving you a lot to chew on afterwards. And then on top of that as well, that shootout in the middle of Eddington really feels shot really like it is in No Country for Old Men, with that wonderful shootout in the middle of a town with like nobody there, and they're just ducking behind cars and all that kind of stuff. So you get a little bit of that too.
I am so glad that you brought that up because that's actually my next puzzle piece, and this was literally in the order in which I'm reading them, so
Nice.
completely random. But
Yeah.
Rio Bravo is
Yeah.
mine because there's a sense then when Joaquin Phoenix has that giant machine gun and is just blasting away into the darkness as these ninja Antifa agitators with machine guns attack him, there's something it feels like he's being pinned down by
Mhm.
whatever external forces are around him that he can't see, he can't logic with, he can't reason with, because they're silent the entire time. We have no idea who they are. We
Yeah.
see them fly into Eddington and never see their faces.
Yeah.
So he could just be shooting it could be all in his head because I mean the man is dying of COVID
That's true.
and he's having an asthma attack as he's killing 10 or 15 people with a giant machine gun. All I think of is the last 30 minutes of Rio Bravo, where Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson and John Wayne are just being pelted with bullets from the outside. You never know exactly who's shooting at them, and it doesn't really matter. All that matters is wanting to see these guys survive, whereas just the difference in Eddington is I don't want Joaquin Phoenix to live.
Sure, sure, absolutely. No, that's a great piece, and you know, to that point of not knowing whether or not this stuff, because he is, like you said, he's dying of COVID, and his brain is like really going. I never really thought of the possibility that this is not happening, that it's all inside of his head. Although I think it's a really great read on it, and this is a bit of a tangent. It's not a puzzle piece, but I saw a headline and I don't have a puzzle piece for this, but a headline that said that Eddington, in this movie, big tech divides and conquers a small U.S. town. And I don't know about you, but that's something that is not represented in any of my puzzle pieces. But I love that read of the movie because we do have this tech company who is, they want to build this data center. And I don't know that it's explicitly stated, but like their influence is kind of what's to tearing everybody apart in a way. And like obviously big tech has such a huge hand in everything from information and everything that is really fucking up this country and the world itself. I think that that's a really interesting read on this. Had that crossed your mind at all or come up in anything that you were thinking of?
It didn't influence anything that I wrote down
Hmm.
as an influence, but it is. I mean, it's the last frame of the film
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
data center.
yeah.
So clearly, that's what Ari Aster is getting to in a roundabout way. But that's something I mean, I look at this movie like a gumbo. Like there's so much in there. There's incels, Antifa, uh, right wing conservatism, no mask mandates, Me Too. All this stuff is going on. That on the list of everything that's important to me, I would have ranked big tech at like 8. But
Right,
then
right.
the second you hear that, you go like, "No, that's the last frame of the film." Of course, that's the right read.
Right, it has to
That's
be
it.
a huge part of it. So yeah, it really makes me want to watch it again and kind of see how much that's woven into everything that comes before that final frame. But
It does prevent Pedro Pascal from being spotless as a mayor because
sure,
clearly he has blinders on. He just wants the money and he wants the resources for his town, no matter
yeah,
damn whatever comes from it. He just knows that he has an end game,
yeah.
and the end game is that data center.
God, I hate to be so negative, but this movie is of course going to make that happen. But who doesn't have that? That one gotcha. At the least one thing that is terrible about them in politics. Like
Right.
they all have that fatal flaw, if not many fatal flaws. But yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, what's your next piece? What do you got?
My next piece actually piggybacks on my previous piece, and that is Shane from I believe 1954. I want to say
I've never seen Shane. Yeah, I need to see that.
it is a great movie. George Stevens western. The great Alan Ladd as Shane, but it doesn't have anything to do with the movie itself so much as the way that they made the movie. And
Hmm.
I forget where I heard this from. It was either I believe it was from George Clooney or some other hyper fuckable celebrity. I'm not sure which, but I hope it was George Clooney because I keep on giving him credit for it. But that he was always taken aback by how loud the gunshots in Shane were, in
Oh
order to
yeah, yeah.
throw the audience off balance and make them jump in their seat every single time Alan Ladd fires his pistol.
I think I heard that quote before too. Yeah.
And that shootout at the end, those gunshots are so loud. I was in the second row in this close-knit little AMC theater and in a packed room, and literally the sound was just reverberating off the walls and into my eardrums, and it was almost like I was being assaulted by sound.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that just it enhanced the impact of that scene, and the gunshots in the entire film are loud, but in that scene in particular, they are deafening.
That's a great one, and, yeah, what was, now I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the Alex Garland war film from earlier
Oh,
this
Warfare.
year. Warfare, yeah, another A24 film where,
Good movie too.
yeah, very good. Another depressing movie, but another
Yes.
movie with incredible sound design, though. That was, like, one of my favorite parts of that movie, and you're totally right. The sound of just all the violence finally popping off in this, and especially, God, when the one guy just gets blown to bits, from those bullets
Oh, when the
ripping
guy
through him.
gets his leg ripped off, oh my
Yeah, oh,
it's totally
it's
it's
gnarly.
RoboCop.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Bonus puzzle piece right there. Yeah, no, really, really great sound work there. I'm gonna go for my next one. This might be a bit of a stretch, but it's something I was thinking about here is Eyes Wide Shut. And I was
Okay.
thinking about how if this idiot would just ignore all these external things going on in the world and around him and just pay attention to his poor wife, maybe everything could be okay. And that's like my favorite part about Eyes Wide Shut is like all this weird stuff with these secret societies and all these wealthy people and all this. If Tom Cruise would just go home and pay attention to his wife, everything would be okay for his relationship. And I really got that too here. Maybe Emma Stone wouldn't ever, go so far down the rabbit hole, and maybe he wouldn't have gotten mixed up in all this shit. Maybe he would just have a simple, okay life at home if he had just paid attention to his wife. It's something I just couldn't stop thinking about here.
And you have two of the most gorgeous women on the face of the earth, Nicole Kidman and Emma Stone. So it's like,
Yeah,
why wouldn't you wanna spend time with them? Seriously,
exactly.
you're married to them. Hello?
Yes, exactly. So, what do you got next?
Next one I got is actually a twofer because a clip from the film appears in the movie itself, and that is John Ford's Young Mr. Lincoln.
Okay.
Now, I was trying to go through and figure out why this clip of this movie was in Eddington, and I think it has something to do with the compromises that Pedro Pascal's character has to make in order to actually get a foothold on public policy. And then contrasting that with, we all look at Lincoln as this untouchable figure who's never done anything dirty in his life, but clearly you got to get your hands a little muddy in order to actually affect change. And I
Sure.
think that's what Ari Aster is going for. If not, I'm an idiot. But I think that might be at least a little. Let's just say a little bit. I am Ari Aster. It's a little bit. Okay, there we go.
Hey, you got it there.
Confirmed
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Confirmed. I think that's a really interesting one, and I think, yeah, it's funny too because, like, that's not something I would associate with him normally. Like, with the rest this movie is so different from the rest of his filmography to look back at cinema in that way and to, like, have, like, something that I guess you could call an Easter egg, but, like, something that's, like, throwing clues out there in that kinda way, that's not really a thing I would associate with a lot of his filmmaking, maybe just because it's mostly straight up horror for the most part, but, I guess it's a good, place to kind of sidestep into a very, very obvious puzzle piece here. But I was going to talk about his last film, Beau is Afraid. As far as like his style of filmmaking and the way it's been evolving over these last 10 years that he's been this major figure in filmmaking. And this movie, it feels almost like a reining in of like Beau is Afraid. It felt like he had made these two really kind of tight horror films, and then like there's the other like shorts and stuff that he had done, but like these two horror films that were beloved, and then he just went crazy with Beau is Afraid, and it's so out there and so over the top. But he grew so much with that movie. It's such an impressive movie, and it's such a huge leap as a filmmaker. And it feels like Eddington, he took all of that leap and then kind of just reined it into something that means something more. Or I don't want to say that Beau is Afraid doesn't, but like this one, I feel so much more layered with depth and things worth saying. And like to be looking back at filmmaking history and to like include an Easter egg like a young Mr. Lincoln there and that reasoning, which I think you're probably pretty spot on and onto something there. I think is really cool, and it just makes me even more excited to see what he does as a filmmaker rather than just continuing to do like messed up A24 horror movie kind of things.
It's, and regarding Beau is Afraid, I will never be angry at a movie with a giant penis monster,
Of course,
especially
yeah,
one that's hiding in the attic.
yeah,
But the thing that's a very astute point that you made about the evolution of his craft, because if you look at the first 2 movies, they're basically other movies with his stamp put on them. Like,
yeah,
Hereditary is Rosemary's Baby,
totally,
and Midsummer is The Wicker Man.
sure,
Whereas what is Beau is Afraid? Like, what is the one-to-one correlation here? There is none. And
yeah,
same, I would say, even for Eddington. I would
yeah,
say Eddington is an even further evolving of the form, because it's 40 minutes shorter.
yeah. That's
So
a nice
clearly he
thing too.
learned something from Beau is Afraid. When the movie was over, when I saw it in the theater, when the movie was over, literally 3 people turned to the next person that was with them and said, "I don't get, what does that ending mean?" And I wanted to lean
Yeah,
back going, "Nobody knows."
yeah,
But I didn't have the guts.
yeah, sure. That's why we have movie podcasts. We don't talk to people in public, but
Exactly.
yeah. So, what do you got for your next puzzle piece?
My next one is amazing that I even thought of this, because I have not really been thinking about this movie since the 25 years since I saw it, and that would be Very Bad Things,
Oh,
which
okay.
is a black comedy about a bachelor party where something goes wrong, and Jeremy Piven is one of the best men, and he ends up killing a prostitute accidentally by bashing her head on a wall, and they decide to cover it up, and then it's the as each one starts to suspect that the other is going to give them away or get or put them in jail or do whatever, and they just start eating at each other until they start dying one by one at the hands of somebody else. And at the
Hmm.
very end, the lead character is played by John Favreau. Amazingly enough, back when he
Oh yeah.
was not a portly director of Iron Man, but it was instead a portly film actor.
Yeah, sure.
He ends the movie, he gets in a terrible accident, and he ends the movie quadriplegic in a wheelchair. And the end of Eddington is Joaquin Phoenix, who's been stabbed in the head some time later, maybe at least a year, and he's completely an invalid. He needs to be carried to bed. He needs to literally be brought to the toilet to go to the bathroom. It's the entire movie is actually laughing at him at that moment.
Yeah,
And it's one of
sure.
those things where it just reminded me, like, at that the ending of Very Bad Things, which I thought was funny, and then immediately thought, "Does that make me a bad person?" That I found that amusing, and I
Right.
think that maybe it does, but that's okay. I've made peace with it.
That's great. That's great. I also love the idea of movies where just everyone is just awful, and Very Bad Things is definitely that. I was trying to think of stuff for that for a puzzle piece, and actually I'm going to do my last two puzzle pieces together because they're both HBO TV shows. But one of them is an example of that, and that is Vice Principals, the Danny McBride,
Yes,
Walton Goggins show, which is
love it.
so incredibly funny. Just these two awful, awful, awful people vying for a vice principal job. They're probably conservatives, although it's not explicitly stated. But they're these guys that just feel so wronged by America and the world and minorities and like any groups that aren't straight white men, that they just are lashing out at each other, at everyone around them, and they're just acting like absolute children. And it's so funny and just so hilarious. And then to combine with that, The Curse, which Emma Stone was in, with Nathan Fielder and the Safdies, and like that movie being such a great takedown of liberals by liberals, which is definitely a big part of Eddington as well. And like just we're all of a certain mindset, but at the same time we also get incredibly sick and tired of the virtue signaling and the people just trying to make big points and just having nothing really to say. And I think both The Curse and Eddington really take those kinds of people down really well. And Emma Stone is so funny in The Curse. If you like her here in Eddington, definitely go watch that.
And it has one of the most spellbinding endings I've
Ooh,
seen in a television series in a long time, and that I still
amazing.
don't understand it. I mean, I watched it maybe half a year ago, and I'm
Mhm.
still chewing on it in the back of my brain
Yeah, I
as
have
to
my
how they
read
did
on
what they
it.
did and how they pulled it off, 'cause it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's insane and, definitely one of the best endings that there's been in anything for quite a while, but,
And
yeah.
I'll piggyback on your mention of Vice Principals, and that the sequel, the spiritual sequel, The Righteous Gemstones, is
Mhm.
also a send up of this kind of self-righteous religious right
Sure.
that is, it lasted longer than Vice Principals. I believe it's exactly twice as long,
Yeah,
but
4
it
seasons, yeah.
gets you with those characters and gets you sunk into their just completely self-absorbed dilemmas, these dilemmas that they do nothing but bring on to themselves.
Sure.
Nobody is out there aggrieving them.
Yeah.
Everybody else is simply striking back out in revenge, and they take it like, "Well, what did I do? I didn't. I'm just because I'm a multimillionaire. What's my
Mm.
problem?"
They're so great. I'm more of a movie guy myself than anything, but those 2 shows, Vice Principals and, Righteous Gemstones are 2 of my favorite things that have happened of the last 10 years in any, any form of entertainment, but,
And both boosted by amazing Walton Goggins performances, just
he's the best.
absolutely amazing.
He would have been good in Eddington, actually, now that I
Oh
think about
yeah,
it. Oh, he would have
totally.
been great. Yeah. Well, do you have any other puzzle pieces you wanna bring up?
I have two more.
Okay.
The first would be one that was on Ari Aster's letterbox list of his influences, and I was trying to figure out how I connected with them and see if I could puzzle it out myself. No pun intended.
Mhm.
And that would be JFK, Oliver Stone's JFK from
Oh,
1991.
yeah. I did see him mention this, yeah.
In that I watched a one of the short videos on YouTube from the Academy where they sat down and showed him scripts from movies that influenced Eddington.
Mhm.
And they gave him the script to JFK. There was the first draft and the shooting draft. And the shooting draft had so much pencil marks and red marker and blue marker and everything. And it was clearly like Oliver Stone is just binging his way through cocaine, clearly
Yeah.
unable to control himself.
Mhm.
And the way that Astor described it was that it was brilliantly designed and that it taps into the fever of conspiratorial thinking, which I
Mhm.
think is, if we're talking about that, this might be the best movie after JFK to actually get that right. Simply
Mhm.
because the age of media has advanced. Like
Yeah.
with the release of JFK, they literally got the Zapruder file uh, sent out, and they got the entire investigation was made public because of this one movie. But
Right.
it's clearly the work of a man who doesn't trust the world around him and
Sure.
thinks that every single thing that they see cannot be a coincidence. Everything has a design plan. However, he's still an atheist. So go
Yeah.
figure. Doesn't make a
Yeah.
lot of sense to me.
Sure, sure.
And then my last puzzle piece is, of course, Robert Altman's 1975 film Nashville,
Oh, amazing.
which is described as by Astor as a gallery of eccentric characters, which I think really applies to Eddington because there's no
Mhm.
one character that you see and go like, "Oh, he didn't make an impact." No, everybody does, and it's he calls it America as a circus.
Mhm.
And I learned from that interview that he was actually raised in Santa Fe. So he's not one of these coastal elite liberals. He's
Right.
lived in America. He knows what America is like. And he might be even too gentle to us, having seen the film.
That is a really, really good one, and, I again, this is another one you brought up. You started this conversation with First Reformed, which I hadn't thought of, and I thought was just a fantastic one to include here. Nashville is so good, and to see this part of America and see just, again, that mixing of all the different kinds of people that you find in, like you said, the real America, like the middle of America like that. And then, of course, for violence to, of course, have to be a part of anything, any American story. There's always going to be some violence at some point, and you don't realize that it's necessarily all building towards it, but it sure as shit is. Um, but yeah, Nashville's amazing, and God, now that you mentioned Nashville in conversation with Ari Aster, and as he's continuing to expand and do like different things with film, I'd like to see something that goes even deeper into that, where like a bigger tapestry of characters and different stories that all kind of intertwine like that. That would actually be really cool to see.
I would love to see him make his Altman movie. I mean, that would
Yeah,
be absolutely unhinged and therefore the kind of movie I need to see.
we are
I'll be
definitely going to be
running to the
looking
theater
forward to
day one
that.
if you tell me, "Oh, he's making an Altman movie." Okay, I'm here. Give
Let's
me
do it.
California Split with a little bit of Rosemary's Baby. Let's see what you got. Come on, bring it on.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's going to be amazing. I wanted to mention, let's get into some closing thoughts here. And I wanted to start it off with the Daniel Pemberton score, which is fantastic. One of my favorite scores of the year so far. It reminds me a little bit of Robbie Robertson's work in Killers of the Flower Moon last year, which
Yeah.
it just has that kind of beat to it and like where it's just propelling the film forward. And yeah, really, really great stuff there from him.
And syncopation that you can feel in your chest.
Oh,
It was
hell
like when
yeah.
I saw Stop Making Sense in IMAX, and
Mhm.
just every single drum beat hit me in the heart, and it was just like it
Yeah.
was my entire chest was vibrating by the end of that movie. With the
Amazing
sound system
stuff.
and his score, it's just well, oh my god, it
W
pounding. It's amazing.
Wonderful stuff. Anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap up here?
No, I actually got in more puzzle pieces than I planned to get in, so, oh god. No, I have 5 more for you. No.
Oh, boy, let's go. Uh, is there another movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
You know what? I'm gonna be completely boring, and I'm gonna jump on the hype train and say that if you have not seen James Gunn's Superman,
Mm,
what the hell's the matter with you? Come on.
yeah.
It's the big movie of the year. Let's all admit it. Yes, I know, we are recording the day that the Fantastic Four drops, and I'm actually more excited to see that than I was to see Superman, but Superman was the only chance I got to sit next to my dad in a crowded theater and cry twice, like a
Nice.
little baby. And I even put it in my letterbox review, and there was even a picture of a shot from behind Clark and his dad's heads as they're sitting on the bench together. And as I selected that as my background thing, a tear immediately started coming down my eye. And I'm like, okay, clearly this movie affected me in a way that I'm not comfortable with yet.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. I love that. I love that. Right on. Great, great recommendation. Because yeah, everybody should definitely see Superman if you haven't yet. But Ryan, tell people about your podcast and where they can find it.
Sure. So I have 2 podcasts. One is One Track Mind, which is a commentary based podcast, a big celebration of physical media, where we try to analyze a film through its audio commentaries episode by episode. You have been on 2 episodes, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Cabin Boy and Cloverfield, if I'm getting those
Yes.
correctly, I think. And you can find that at one, that is the numeral one, Trackmind Podcast on Instagram, onetrackmind.bsky.social on Blue Sky, and we're on Facebook and Podchaser. And my other podcast is Reels of Justice, which we have to get David on, which is a
Yeah.
fake movie court wherein a prosecutor, defender, judge, and jury try to conclude whether or not a movie is guilty of being a bad movie. And you can find that on at Reels of Justice on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I keep trying to get our host Maynard to get us a Blue Sky, but he hasn't yet. I refuse to give up hope. It will happen one of these days.
I believe in you. I think it'll happen, and I would definitely love to do that show sometime. So we will make that happen later this year
Start
for
thinking of
sure.
movies you want to prosecute, and I will definitely get you on the schedule.
Beautiful. We'll make it happen. Ryan, thank you so much for doing the show, and we'll talk to you again sometime.
All right.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Eddington. Thank you to Ryan Lewis Rodriguez for joining me on that one. And thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying Piecing It Together, make sure you're subscribed. You could also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Check out my Substack and our Patreon, both places you can find more about Piecing It Together, about my music career, about everything that I'm up to. There are links in the show notes for all of that. And don't forget to enter to win some tickets for the upcoming live shows I've got going on. All that in the show notes. So let's close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And I got to find something heavy for this one. Actually, yeah, I got something. I've got a track called Enemy from my album A Different Kind of Dream, and I actually put together a very politically charged music video for this one during the 2022 midterm election. But yeah, you can find that on my YouTube channel. But this is Enemy. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.